Hello and welcome to Nithrania YouTube channel. You're watching another episode of the Game in a Nutshell series designed for explaining the board game rules. My name is Branislav Berec, and in this video we're going to learn how to play the game called Clash of Galliformes from Toddy's Games. This is a game which is coming to Kickstarter on June 15th, so you're about to see the prototype version of the game, and all the components are subject to change for the final version. Let's get started. To set the game up, each player chooses a color and takes a player board, all the cubes of the same color. One of each of those cubes is placed in the first space of this income tracks, and 3 more cubes in the first space of this resource tracks. Then take your nest, all the outpost tokens, and all your birds. The number of birds, these large birds and small birds, are indicated on your player board. Randomly determine the starting player, and that player will place 2 game boards on the table. These game boards have to be adjacent, and then that player takes the nest and 1 small bird and places them on any of these hills, any of these locations on the game board. When you place it on a location with a resource symbol, increase your income of that resource on your player board. Then place the small bird on your nest. Then the next player in a player order does the same, so they choose 2 game boards. Both of them are the game boards of your choice, and you can arrange them any way you want, as long as at least one side of the game board is adjacent to another side. And then the remaining players in the game do the same. You can create any kind of shape for the game board. It is actually part of the game. And similarly, place the nest on one of these map tiles at least 4 spaces away from another nest in the game. Then prepare the turn tracker with the turn marker on the number 1 on the tracker. Then the turn order and the puzzle sheet and all the puzzle pieces. Then all the ability tokens face up, 2 battle dice and 1 golden egg. Then prepare 1 set of tokens per player. 1 set consists of tokens numbered from 1 to 9 and 5 technology tokens. So in a 3-player game you would prepare 3 sets. Then each player would choose 1 of those tech tokens and places it next to their player board. Then each player also takes 9 bonus cards. These are kept in players' hands. And after that, players will place these tokens on the game board, starting with the first player and then continuing clockwise. And on your turn, you take 1 of the tokens and place it on any location on the game board. There can only be 1 token on each location. Then the next player in a clockwise direction does the same, and continue like this until all players place all the tokens on the game board. If you want to make it more randomized, you can turn these tokens face down and place them on the game board randomly. Then again, starting with the first player and continuing in a clockwise direction, each player places 2 outcast birds not closer than 4 locations from any other bird. These outcast birds are defending that location, even against the player who placed those birds there. Once all players are done, the setup is complete and we can start the game. In Clash of Galliformes, players represent tribes who summoned birds to help them fight against other tribes. And over the course of the games, you will deploy birds to the game board. You will move them on the game board and collecting these tokens. With those tokens, you will develop your birds and your nest and outposts, and also various abilities of your birds. And after you assemble enough numbered tokens, you can exchange them for these puzzle pieces or even for this golden egg. Those puzzle pieces and the golden egg are the most valuable pieces in the game. The game is played in rounds, and each round players take turns, starting with the first player and then continuing clockwise, and on your turn you follow this turn order. First you will move, then gather resources and trade them, and then you will develop and expand. When moving, you will move the birds from 1 or 2 locations. then you will get the resources and you will also be able to trade those resources with other players. And then you will develop your upgrades, deploy new birds and assemble your puzzle. The game ends either at the end of round 50 or when any player completes a puzzle and develops 2 technology tokens. Then players will calculate the final score. The most victory points are for the completed puzzle piece, then for the ownership of the golden egg. Then you can score some victory points if you have maxed resources, and also for your nest, outposts and birds on the game board. The player with the most points is the winner. So, on your turn, the first thing you can do is to move. You can move birds from 1 or 2 locations, and you can move 1 or both birds from the location because there's maximum of 2 birds in one location. And you can either move them together to the same location, or you can split the movement and move to 2 different locations. If there are any tokens in the location where you end your movement, take the token and place it next to your player board. When you move, you can only move to an adjacent location. If you move to a location with the outcast birds, you will have to attack them and fight with them, even if those outcasts are the outcasts you have placed there at the start of the game. The battle also takes place when you move to a location with an enemy outpost, or with enemy bird, or even with an enemy nest. Then the attacking player may play any number of the attack cards. Remember, you keep these cards hidden in your hand. And then the defending player does the same. They may also play any number of their defense cards. But keep in mind, these cards are just one-time use. You can only use them once per game and then they are completely removed from the game. Then roll the dice, both the attack and the defense dice. And after that, you can reveal those bonus cards. Then count up the attack points and the defense points. For each bird in the location, the attack value is printed on the game board. This is the attack value for the small birds, this one for the large birds. This is the defense value for the birds. Again, this one for the small ones, this one for the large ones. Then if you would have any upgrades, let's say this attacking upgrade, add the value of that upgrade, but you only add it once, regardless of how many birds are taking part in the battle. Then if the defending player would defend their outpost or the nest, if they would have any upgrades for the nest or for the outpost, they would add those defense points. Then add the value of dice and the bonus cards. You can only use these defense bonus cards for the birds. These type of bonus cards can be used for nests and outposts. So in this example, each red bird has the attack strength of 3, that is 3, 6, plus 2 plus 1, that is 9. And let's say the red player has this attack bonus plus 1. So the total attack value for the red player is 10. Then the yellow bird has the defense value of 2, plus 2 plus 3 from the die, that is also defense value of 10. In case of a tie, the attacker wins. Losing player removes all the birds from that location and they remove those birds completely from the game, so they will be unavailable for the rest of the game. If there would be any outposts in that location, they would be returned to the supply of that player. And if you would lose a nest in the battle, you would choose another outpost in the game and replace that outpost with your nest, and that outpost would be completely removed from the game. Then the winning player would take one of the tech tokens or the number tokens from the losing player, but these tokens must come from the area which is next to the player board of that losing player, never from the game board. Or if that player would also possess the golden egg, you can also take that golden egg. After you choose the token as the spoils of war, place the token next to your player board. If you would conquer the nest, you would be able to choose 2 tech tokens and also up to 2 puzzle pieces from that player. But this time you can also take them from their player board, so the tech tokens placed over here or the puzzle pieces from this area. And remember, it's always the attacking player who chooses which tokens they take. Then after the battle, both players remove their bonus cards from the game. If any player loses all of their outposts and their nest, they are basically eliminated, but they can start a game with a new bird, and that bird would have to be placed not closer than 4 locations from any other bird. The second phase of your turn is the gather and trade phase. Anytime you place an outpost on the game board, you increase the income of the resource if there's any present on that location, which is indicated by these markers on your player board. So the first thing in the gather and trade phase is to gather those resources. So here I would get 4 food, 1 wood and 2 stone. You can have maximum 10 pieces of each resource. If you would gain more than that, the excess is lost. After that, you may trade those resources and also the tech tokens and number tokens and your puzzle pieces. If you would have any of those pieces, then you can trade them with other players. And then the third phase is the develop and expand phase. In this phase you have 2 options. You can either do that develop and expand on your player board, or if you have all the number tokens here, you can exchange 3 of them for 1 puzzle piece. So let's start with developing and expanding. To upgrade one of the areas on your player board, you have to pay the cost inside that box. Here it's 2 food and 4 wood, and outside of the box is the reward you get. So let's say I would have sufficient number of wood and food, I would pay the cost, and then I can upgrade this particular area, for which I would gain 1 additional defense point for my birds. To develop one of these technological tokens, you have to have those resources, and if you do and pay those resources, you would place one of those tech tokens from beside your player board onto that space on the player board. Again, here you would gain additional income and some bonus defense points. Then, if you would have any new number tokens beside your player board, you can place them on your puzzle space. Then you can place new birds on the game board. The cost to place a bird is printed here, so it's 3 food for a small bird and 6 food for the large bird. Let's say if you would have those resources, after spending them, you place the bird on your nest and you can have maximum 2 birds in 1 location. And this number indicates the maximum number of those birds you can have. In this case it would be 4 large birds and 7 small birds. And then you can place an outpost. Each outpost costs 2 food, and when you place an outpost, you can only place it on a location where you have any bird or birds present at the moment. If you would place that outpost on a location with the resources, increase the income of that resource. Then only if you have all these number tokens in this puzzle space. Instead of developing and expanding, you can choose one set, any one set of those number tokens and remove them from the game. And in return, you may take one of the puzzle pieces. Place that piece on your player board. When you manage to fully complete one puzzle piece, you gain the special ability of that puzzle piece. You can find their description in the rulebook. Then, in addition to developing and expanding your board or choosing a puzzle piece, you can place new abilities for your birds. They have one permanent special ability, which is permanent for the rest of the game. You can never lose that special ability. However, you can add additional ones. Each costs 10 resources of any kind. And then you can choose one of the face-up tokens in the display. Place that ability on the dedicated space on your player board. Both small and large birds can have their own special abilities, but you may never have 2 same special abilities, including your permanent one. If you wish and you have enough resources, you can even replace those abilities with new ones. The old ones are removed from the game. You you can always have just one ability, one specific ability for each of your birds. If you give to another player 5 tokens of your choice, including a puzzle token which doesn't fit your puzzle, that may easily happen in the game. If you give them 5 tokens, you will receive this golden egg, which is worth 9 victory points at the end of the game. Remember, when you lose your outpost or your nest, you may lose that golden egg. The game ends in 2 different ways. First, if you reach the end of the round 50, or if any player completes a puzzle and 2 technological tokens. In that case, finish the current round and then count up the points for each player. If you have the golden egg, it counts for 9 victory points. If you have completed puzzle, that is also 9 victory points. If you would have maxed out resources, all of them, that would be 4 victory points. And then if you still have a nest on the game board, it counts for 2 victory points. And then you score 1 victory point for each of your birds and outposts on the game board. In addition, you also score 1 victory point for each tech tokens you have developed, and then the player with the most victory points is the winner. So that's how you play Clash of Galliformes. If you have any questions or comments, I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. If you like the series, please subscribe. You can even support the channel on the Patreon page. My name is Branislav Berec. You've been watching Game in a Nutshell and hope to see you next time.